BionicDance is filmed in front of a live studio audience. As YouTube atheists go, Godless Cranium is definitely one worth watching, and if you're not subscribed to his channel, then you eat yellow snow. That said, he just did a compilation video of theists telling people which arguments atheists make that have them tuning out. And some of the things they said were just so, let's do this.
And so having identified all these problems with organised religion and with a dogmatic religious mindset, they then tend to assume that there is therefore no legitimacy to any spirituality whatsoever, as if religion and spirituality are synonymous when they're not. Religion is meant to give spirituality a form and a structure, but as I said, in many cases it has unfortunately proven to be the worst enemy of genuine spirituality.
A lot here depends on what's meant by spirituality. If you're going to talk about some sort of self-examination or a search for meaning, whatever. It's when we start talking about the paranormal and the supernatural that we're going to run into problems. Most outspoken atheists are skeptics, not naysayers, but rather people who aren't prepared to just accept claims without some sort of hard data to back it up. Now, I personally don't really give a rat's hindquarters if you want to believe in some spiritual, magical realm or not. It's organized religion that I find in my target sites largely because of religious misbehavior around the world. But it's their supernatural justification for everything that gets my focus, because without that, the rest falls apart.
The argument that is the least satisfying from the atheist community is that atheism is the lack of belief in a God. It's highly ambiguous. When addressed and shown symbolically that it's a useless definition, while the belief that there is no God is a useful definition, many atheists will make excuses on that. So it shows a lot of dishonesty, which stifles conversation.
What do you mean it's not a useful definition? Useful for what exactly? Because most of the time, when theists insist on atheism being the belief that there are no gods, it's because they're making another attempt to shift the burden of proof, to try to force us to prove that there is no God. That certainly seems to me like what they want to use this definition for. And that's dishonest. Why? Because it doesn't actually describe the position most atheists have taken. The number of gods I believe in is 0. The reason I don't believe in any gods is because the people who say there are gods have done a lousy job of showing them to me. They insist that I use faith instead of proof. And since they've failed their burden of proof, I continue to believe in no gods, and will continue doing so until they do a better job of proving they exist. That's my actual stance, and it doesn't involve insisting that no gods exist. How is describing myself in this fashion not useful? It tells you most of what you need to know about my position regarding religion. How is that useless? Okay, granted, yes, this is a very broad definition, covers a lot of ground, and that's why we have adjectives to help you narrow down someone's specific beliefs. I am an agnostic apistivous atheist, for example. It's like genres of fiction. Sci-fi covers a lot of ground, but there is hard sci-fi, soft sci-fi, space opera, cyberpunk, steampunk, diesel punk, post-apocalypse, alien invasion, time travel, speculative fiction, pulp sci-fi, fan fiction, etc., etc. Stop expecting just one word to do all of that heavy lifting. You're arguing over semantics, you're expecting simplicity out of a very complicated topic, and you're strawmanning other people's positions.
How can God possibly be the first cause? He's obviously a complex entity, so by your logic, he would require a cause too. Now, the reason this argument is just silly is because it reveals its ignorance of one of the oldest theological notions stretching all the way back to Plato, and that's divine simplicity. It's actually a doctrine of the Catholic Church that God is actually not complex, that is, composed of parts. He is absolutely simple. not composed of any parts, whether they be physical or metaphysical.
And what we have here is clearly a failure to communicate. If I describe God as being complex, I don't mean composed of many parts. If I said complex, I mean something closer to sophisticated or intelligent or nuanced or something of that nature. Look, we're talking about a being that is alleged to have created the universe, and I don't think anybody could deny that the universe is a fairly complicated place. Any being that could create the universe would need to be able to think up or already know things like physics and chemistry and be able to make sure that everything functioned instead of merely collapsing like a Jenga tower. Such a being would make Einstein look like trash can mold in the intelligence department, unless you want to claim that a god could just poof the universe into existence without having to know how it works first. Now, it sounds like we're talking past each other when we use the words complex and simple, but you have to understand, making a claim that an allegedly omniscient and omnipotent being is simple is not a particularly convincing argument and makes you look rather simple. Frankly, it sounds like you're trying to use philosophical cheat codes to get out of a dogmatic corner into which you've been painted by your scripture.
What I think to be perhaps the worst atheist objection would be particular to the cosmological arguments. And this would be that, well, if God created everything, then who created God? And I think this is a weak argument because it fundamentally misunderstands the metaphysical principles that underlie the cosmological arguments.
And this is always a problem. It's almost inevitable that when someone's argument isn't accepted, they'll claim the other side just didn't understand. You know what? They understood. They just didn't agree and gave you reasons why not.
So let's take, for example, a paintbrush. You can make a paintbrush infinitely long, but if a hand doesn't initially move it, then you really will have movement in the paintbrush, right? And I think that this is what atheists usually get wrong when they're talking about the cosmological arguments when they bring up this objection.
Except that you've stopped short of the point of the atheist argument, which is that without a mommy and daddy to bump uglies to produce the kid whose hand is moving the paintbrush, you won't get that movement. But without mommy and daddy having parents to build them out of sperm and eggs, and then their parents, and then their parents, and so on, you expect us to accept that the hand has always been there, and we're not doing it. We haven't misunderstood you. We're just not buying what you're selling.
The first one that comes to my mind is the phrase invisible sky daddy. Invisible sky daddy is intended to be offensive. If that's sufficient reason to avoid using the N-word, it should be sufficient reason to avoid using this phrase.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Now hold on a second here. Those two are not equivalent. Being black is not a choice. Calling someone the N-word, mocking them for their skin color, is just flat out bigotry. But flippantly calling someone out for what they believe is not. You made that philosophical bed, now you're gonna lie in it. Yes, your beliefs are being mocked. Don't like it? Then get less nutty beliefs. Next, you'll be asking us to be respectful of the beliefs of flat earthers, moon landing deniers, and people who believe in Bigfoot. Oh, don't like those comparisons? Well, guess what? That's what you sound like. If you step out of your bubble and really look at what you believe through the eyes of someone who doesn't, what do you see? What you'll see is a bunch of people who are, in essence, believing in Santa Claus to the infinite power. That's how you look to other people. That's how your beliefs sound. And let's face it, when the phrase, "Our Father who art in heaven," gets bandied about, describing a guy we can't see, who is so often depicted as a dude with a Santa Claus beard casting rainbows from a cloud, and then you object to the phrase "invisible sky daddy," well, come on. Seriously, come on. There are certain cartoon shows I could believe in and sound less goofy. I mean, I'm sorry, you're expecting too much if you want your beliefs treated with kid gloves here. Like I said, get beliefs that are less nutty.
Some of you might be wondering why I would make a video like this one. Well, I admit the idea wasn't mine. A patron suggested it, and I thought it was a pretty cool idea. I was very interested in hearing from a theistic perspective what sorts of things make them tune out when they're talking to an atheist. I realize this video won't appeal to all of you, but I hope that some of you found value here.
See, I sort of get it. I do. I mean, we're not going to win hearts and minds if we're berating the other side. I see that. But honestly, these objections here just kind of pissed me off. They either seem childish or thin-skinned or dishonest. And I realize that this reply is probably going to burn more bridges than GC's video might have mended, but damn it, I needed some catharsis here. Some of the things I said, especially that last bit, were things I've been keeping under the surface for a while now, and I just needed to get them out. And like I said near the beginning, I really don't care what you believe, not as long as it doesn't interfere in my life. But since it does, since I find I must argue against religion, why not use both barrels? I'll be bad cop. Let someone else play good cop. Until next time, fellow space travelers, this is BionicDance saying don't run on automatic. Instead, please, think.
Even YouTubers need Ferraris. Please donate on Patreon.
If you don't like what I'm saying, there's a good chance you're the reason I'm saying it.